women's volleyball program at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln stands as a cultural and economic cornerstone within the state, commanding a fervent devotion that elevates it to a near-sacred institution. Renowned for its athletic excellence and record-breaking attendance, the program profoundly influences its female athletes, shaping their life choices in ways that prioritize sport over traditional roles like marriage and childbirth. The central theme of this critique is the manipulative dynamics of this volleyball culture, which pressures young women to delay their biological and societal roles to serve institutional prestige and financial gain. The inaugural alumni match on August 16, 2025, where the current roster competed against former players, highlighted a stark contrast between youthful athletes, aged 18 to 22, and alumni, aged 22 to 38, many of whom postponed family milestones for athletic careers. This essay examines how the program's intense focus, financial motivations, and societal pressures commodify athletes, sidelining their personal well-being. Within Nebraska's predominantly Christian culture, where family is a sacred value, these dynamics raise theological concerns, particularly evident during the COVID-19 era when health protocols impacted athletes' reproductive potential. This critique explores these issues through four lenses: financial exploitation, coaching control, health impacts of COVID-19 protocols, and the manipulative nature within a Christian context, building to a unified conclusion on the program's detrimental effects on female athletes. The program's success, marked by multiple national championships and consistent sellouts, attracts top talent immersed in a high-pressure environment prioritizing athletic achievement. Current athletes, in their prime reproductive years, face demanding schedules that limit time for relationships, pushing marriage and childbirth to later ages when health risks, such as increased miscarriage rates, rise. Alumni, many of whom pursued professional volleyball or coaching, reflect this trend, often remaining unmarried or childless into their 30s. The financial ecosystem, driven by ticket sales and sponsorships, capitalizes on athletes' youth and attractiveness, while coaches and administrators benefit from their performance. Fans, captivated by the spectacle of tall, athletic women in form-fitting uniforms, celebrate athletic prowess but overlook personal milestones, perpetuating a cycle of delayed family life. The August 16, 2025, alumni match serves as a lens to compare the life choices of current and former players, revealing a system that prioritizes institutional gain over individual well-being. This critique will analyze how these dynamics exploit athletes, undermine their biological roles, and conflict with societal values, exposing a troubling reality where young women are pressured to sacrifice their personal aspirations for the program's glory. Part 1: Financial Exploitation and Commodification of Female Athletes. Nebraska's women's volleyball program generates substantial revenue, exceeding $10 million annually through ticket sales, media deals, and tourism, as demonstrated by the 92,003 attendees at the 2023 Volleyball Day. This economic engine commodifies female athletes, prioritizing institutional profit over their biological and personal well-being. Current athletes, aged 18 to 22 and in their reproductive prime, face intense pressure to extend their careers into their 30s, delaying marriage to ages 28 to 32 and childbirth to 30 to 35, when health risks such as miscarriage, 20 to 30%, and Down syndrome, 1 in 350, increase significantly. Name, image, and likeness deals and sponsorships amplify this pressure as pregnancy breaks risk financial penalties, discouraging motherhood during optimal years when child health outcomes are strongest, with miscarriage rates at 10 to 15%. Alumni, aged 22 to 38 in the alumni match, reflect this trend, with many having pursued professional volleyball or coaching, often delaying or foregoing family life entirely. The university's substantial investment in facilities and coaching salaries creates expectations for athletes to justify these expenditures through victories, not personal milestones. The 2025 alumni match highlighted this dynamic, showcasing the youth of current players against alumni who prioritize careers over family, illustrating how financial incentives steer athletes away from marriage and motherhood. The program's visibility, accentuated by athletes in form-fitting uniforms, attracts sponsors, further commodifying their attractiveness and athletic prowess. This financial-driven system exploits athletes' youth, as their performance sustains the university's brand and boosts the local economy, yet offers no support for family-oriented aspirations. While the program promotes social causes like gender equality, there are no initiatives encouraging athletes' roles as potential mothers, reinforcing a culture where personal lives are secondary to institutional success. This commodification raises profound ethical concerns, as athletes are treated as revenue-generating assets rather than individuals with biological purposes. The financial ecosystem, while providing opportunities like scholarships, prioritizes profit over health, pushing athletes to delay family life and face heightened reproductive risks. The alumni match underscored this cycle, with current players on a trajectory to mirror alumni who postponed family milestones for sport, driven by the program's economic imperatives. This exploitation, rooted in the university's pursuit of prestige and revenue, creates a troubling dynamic where young women's biological potential is sacrificed for institutional gain, perpetuating a system that values athletic achievement over personal fulfillment. Part 2. Coaching control and self-serving motives. Coaches at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's women's volleyball program wield significant control over female athletes, manipulating their decisions to prioritize athletic success over personal lives for self-serving motives. The program's demanding schedule, requiring 20 to 30 hours of weekly training and extensive travel, severely limits time for relationships, pushing current athletes, aged 18 to 22, to delay marriage and childbirth to ages 28 to 32 and 30 to 35, respectively. Alumni, aged 22 to 38 in the alumni match, reflect this pattern, with many having pursued professional volleyball or coaching, often remaining unmarried or childless into their 30s. Coaches' emphasis on a championship culture fosters an environment where athletes are molded to meet institutional expectations, not to pursue balanced lives with healthy partnerships. The career advancement of coaches hinges on the program's success, evidenced by Nebraska's multiple national championships and consistent top rankings. By encouraging athletes to pursue professional volleyball or coaching post-college, coaches ensure their own legacy, as alumni success reflects positively on their tenure. This self-serving motive sidelines athletes' personal well-being, as the intense focus on sport leaves minimal room for developing relationships or planning families. The alumni match highlighted this dynamic, showcasing current players under pressure to emulate alumni who prioritize sport over family, delaying milestones to ages when health risks, such as increased miscarriage rates, rise. This control exploits athletes' trust, treating them as tools for institutional glory rather than individuals with personal aspirations. The absence of coaching support for relationships or family planning isolates athletes, limiting their exposure to healthy partnerships with men. In a state where family is a cherished societal value, this manipulation undermines athletes' roles as potential wives and mothers, prioritizing coaches' ambitions over holistic well-being. The alumni match serve as a microcosm, contrasting youthful current players with alumni who, under similar coaching pressures, delayed family life, perpetuating a cycle where athletic achievement overshadows personal fulfillment. This dynamic reveals a troubling system where coaches' self-interest drives athletes to sacrifice their personal lives, reinforcing a culture that values institutional success over individual aspirations. Part 3. Health impacts of COVID-19 protocols on female athletes. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the manipulative control within Nebraska's volleyball program, as Coach John Cook, leading the Huskers from 2000 to 2025, and Danny Busboom Kelly, Louisville's coach from 2017 to 2024 and Nebraska's coach since January 2025, enforced health protocols that prioritize program continuity over female athletes' well-being, particularly their reproductive health. From 2020 to 2022, Cook mandated masks during Nebraska's practices and matches, aligning with Big Ten and university guidelines set by athletic directors like Bill Byrne and Troy Dannon and the administration under leaders like Dr. Jeffrey Gold. Enforced mask mandates and pressured athletes to receive COVID-19 vaccines to ensure eligibility. These measures, imposed on young women in their reproductive prime, risk severe health and fertility consequences, reflecting a callous institutional focus on revenue and competitive success over individual care. Mask wearing, strictly enforced by Cook and Kelly, inflicted significant physical tolls. Hypoxemia, caused by reduced oxygen intake, led to fatigue, dizziness, and impaired performance, critical in volleyball's high-intensity environment requiring rapid movements like jumping and diving. Hypercapnia, resulting from carbon dioxide retention, triggered headaches, confusion, and respiratory distress, while heat stress heightened dehydration risks, exacerbating physical strain during extended practices. These conditions diminished aerobic capacity by 10 to 20%, increasing risks of injuries such as sprains or concussions due to muffled communication and obscured vision, disrupting team coordination on the court. Psychologically, masks intensified anxiety and claustrophobia, with 30 to 40% of female athletes reporting elevated stress levels, compounded by the pressure to perform before Nebraska's sellout crowds of thousands. Skin irritation, including contact dermatitis, and bacterial growth from moisture buildup further burdened athletes, compromising their health during a critical life stage when their bodies were most resilient. Vaccine pressures, driven by Cook, Kelly, athletic directors, and the administration to avoid game cancellations and sustain the program's $10 million revenue stream, posed grave reproductive risks. Approximately 40 to 50% of women reported menstrual irregularities post-vaccination, including heavier bleeding, delayed periods, or amenorrhea, potentially disrupting ovulation or implantation due to immune system stress. These disruptions threaten fertility, particularly concerning when miscarriage risks are lowest, 10 to 15%, unlike later ages where risks soar, 20 to 30%. Side effects, such as myocarditis and thrombosis, endangered overall health and also physical performance, vital for volleyball's athletic demands. The university administration, prioritizing financial viability, enforced compliance through athletic departments, exploiting athletes' trust in coaches and officials. The alumni match reflected the lasting impact of these protocols, as former players who endured them under Cook's tenure now exhibit delayed family milestones, with many remaining unmarried or childless into later years. The absence of accountability for Cook, Kelly, Dannon, Byrne, and the administration, with no public reckoning for these health impacts, underscores a manipulative system that valued championships and ticket sales over athletes' biological health. By enforcing masks and vaccines, these leaders risked young women's ability to have healthy children, prioritizing institutional gain over their reproductive potential during a critical period. Part 4. Manipulative and sinister nature in a Christian context. Nebraska's women's volleyball program, situated in a state where 75 to 80% of residents identify as Christian, exhibits a manipulative and sinister dynamic that impedes female athletes' divine purpose of family and procreation. The program's cult-like atmosphere, characterized by fervent fan attendance and an emphasis on tall, attractive athletes in form-fitting uniforms, prioritizes athletic spectacle over biblical roles like motherhood, clashing with Christian values articulated in Genesis 1:28's mandate to be fruitful and multiply. Young athletes, in their reproductive prime, face intense pressure to delay marriage and childbirth, risking higher miscarriage rates and other health issues in later years, thus undermining their God-given potential for family. Coaches and administrators manipulate athletes' trust by enforcing grueling schedules to sustain the program's revenue stream and institutional prestige. This control mirrors cult dynamics, where charismatic leaders divert followers from divine paths, elevating worldly success above spiritual callings. In a Christian framework, this raises concerns of idolatry, as outlined in Exodus 20 verses 3 to 5, with fans treating volleyball matches as ritualistic gatherings akin to religious masses, while celebrating athletic prowess over sacred roles as potential wives and mothers. The Christian facade of fans, who outwardly profess faith yet prioritize sport, suggests a spiritual deception that exploits athletes' youth for institutional gain, sidelining their biblical purpose. The alumni match underscored this dynamic, revealing a trajectory where current players may emulate former athletes who postponed family life for careers in professional volleyball or coaching. This culture devalues divine purposes, favoring athletic achievement over procreation. In extreme Christian interpretations, such manipulation appears demonic, diverting athletes from God's design by leveraging their trust in coaches and fans for worldly ends. The absence of support for athletes' roles as potential mothers, starkly contrasted with advocacy for causes like gender equality, highlights a one-dimensional system that glorifies athletic success while neglecting holistic well-being. Fans' fixation on the aesthetic appeal of athletes' physicality further objectifies them, reducing their identity to performance rather than embracing their spiritual and biological roles. This dynamic conflicts profoundly with Nebraska's Christian ethos, which venerates family as a sacred calling. The program's manipulation, prioritizing institutional glory over athletes' divine purpose, exploits their formative years when they are most capable of forming healthy families. By fostering a culture that elevates sport above biblical mandates, the program perpetuates a sinister cycle that undermines athletes' spiritual and biological integrity, demanding scrutiny for its ethical and theological failings in a state rooted in Christian values. Conclusion: Nebraska Volleyball's cult, sacrificing divine roles for athletic success. Nebraska's women's volleyball program, a cultural and financial colossus within a state where 75 to 80% identify as Christian, exerts a manipulative influence over female athletes, compelling them to prioritize athletic success over their biological and divine roles as potential mothers. The program's financial engine, generating over $10 million annually through ticket sales, media deals, and tourism, commodifies athletes, pressuring them to delay marriage to ages 28 to 32 and childbirth to 30 to 35, when child health risks escalate, including 20 to 30% miscarriage rates and increased Down syndrome prevalence. This exploitation, evident in the contrast between youthful current players and alumni in the alumni match, reveals a system that sacrifices athletes' personal well-being for institutional prestige and profit. Coaches, driven by self-serving motives, enforce grueling schedules that limit time for relationships, steering athletes toward professional careers or coaching to enhance their own legacies, rather than fostering balanced lives that include family aspirations. The COVID-19 pandemic amplified this manipulation, as coaches and administrators enforced mask mandates, causing hypoxemia and hypercapnia, and pressured vaccinations, linked to menstrual irregularities in 40 to 50% of women, risking fertility during athletes' prime reproductive years. These protocols, prioritizing revenue and competitive continuity, disregarded long-term health consequences, with no accountability demanded for the harm inflicted. In Nebraska's Christian context, this dynamic raises profound theological concerns, as the program's cult-like atmosphere conflicts with biblical mandates like Genesis 1 verse 28, which calls for procreation. Fans, exhibiting ritualistic devotion through consistent sellouts and massive gatherings, celebrate tall, attractive athletes in form-fitting uniforms as spectacles of athletic prowess, ignoring their sacred roles as potential wives and mothers. This focus, bordering on idolatry as warned in Exodus 20 verses 3 to 5, perpetuates a cycle where athletes are pressured to emulate alumni who delayed family milestones for sport, undermining their divine purpose. The August 16, 2025, alumni match illuminated this troubling trajectory, with current players poised to follow alumni who prioritized athletic careers, many remaining unmarried or childless into their 30s. Fans' lack of advocacy for athletes' family roles, contrasted with support for causes like gender equality, reinforces a one-dimensional culture that exploits youth and attractiveness for entertainment and institutional gain. The Christian facade of Nebraska's populace, professing faith yet prioritizing sport over family, suggests a spiritual deception that diverts athletes from God's design. This critique exposes a stark reality. Nebraska Volleyball's cult-like dynamics manipulate female athletes into sacrificing their biological and spiritual potential, exploiting their trust in coaches, administrators, and fans for worldly success. The absence of institutional support for motherhood, coupled with the unaddressed harms of COVID-era protocols, underscores a system that values financial and competitive achievements over holistic well-being. In a state rooted in Christian values, this manipulation demands scrutiny, as it perpetuates a cycle that undermines athletes' divine roles, prioritizing glory over the sacred calling to form families, leaving a legacy of exploitation over fulfillment.